Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and we were just a few weeks away from the release of season 1 of the Doctor Who reboot going on at Disney with Russell T Davies at the helm and Ncuti Gatwa in the role of the Doctor, or at least supposedly so. And in the lead up to this, we're getting several interviews and quotes from both Russell T Davies and Ncuti Gatwa about the upcoming series that will be helmed in this new era. And it's, of course, as terrible as I could have predicted, and even worse so in several situations, because unlike Jodie Whittaker, Ncuti Gatwa has been gracefully silent for several years now when it comes to his opinion of the fans and the reaction to the backlash to his casting and to the Christmas special. He's kept things very neutral. He said a lot of weird and dumb and really off-putting things, but never anything that I would call downright antagonistic towards the fans. That is until now. But there's so many quotes with him that I want to build up to some of his more disgusting and anti-Doctor Who quotes. But let's start out with this gem from a few weeks ago. We have this quote from Ncuti Gatwa that says, "That's what I'm going to put into the universe. I need the Doctor to have a big, fierce dance routine that, like, destroys a monster with twerking, or maybe some death drops, and that's what will drop the monster." This is insane. He clearly has no understanding what the role of the Doctor is, and the writers forgot, if they ever knew, what Doctor Who is supposed to be. This is not even remotely like Doctor Who. This is nothing that the character would do. They're not even hiding at this point that this is a bold-faced reboot or just a different franchise with the skin suit of Doctor Who around it. They're barely even trying to conceal it at this point, and it only gets worse from here. But the idea of any Doctor twerking is awful. It's awful, straight up awful. This isn't the character. And using death drops to defeat monsters? That's insane! Shout out to Dre from Brutal Planet Comments for explaining to me what a death drop is. But wow, we're already starting out strong. That this is just another clear sign that this isn't Doctor Who, and it was never intended to be so. We have this other quote from him. Doctor Who star Ncuti Gatwa complains that white mediocrity is celebrated while black people struggle to get half that. Now, if you want to check out my full thoughts on this article, I went through it over on the Renaissance Nerds channel. He has a clip up of it from our roundtable live stream, and we go into depth of it. So if you're interested in that, go absolutely check this out. But his comments are completely contradicted by the reality of the situation. He says he has to be the absolute best possible to get even half what white people get, but he's giving a terrible performance. He's doing a terrible job, doing zero research, not even caring about the role of the Doctor, and yet he's been giving the reins to the franchise, the keys to the kingdom. He's the exemplifying truth that it is actually non-white mediocrity is being celebrated and put to the forefront. That's what DEI and now Bridge is making possible, is where whatever you identify and the color of your skin is more important than your talent. And we see that so often these days with such abysmal quality in our film, television, video games, and every source of media, because it is all about diversity. It's no longer about talent. I don't care what you look like or how you identify or who you decide to sleep with. It's all good as long as you make great products and care about these franchises. That's all that's ever mattered to me. But now they're clearly hiring people with mediocrity at the very best to helm these franchises because of their diversity points. And that just clearly disproves everything he has to say here. And we're already off to a rough start because he's making things about race. And if you all remember, when his casting announcement was originally made, not a whole lot of people cared that he was black. There were actually people who fan casted black doctors for years now, with Idris Elba, of course, being a primary one. But that wasn't a problem until he started shooting off his mouth, and more so Russell T Davies and the people at BBC and the mainstream and access media sites making it a big deal about the color of his skin. We thought maybe this could be okay. I unfortunately had a slim degree of hope when Russell T Davies was announced to return to Doctor Who, and with the casting announcement of Ncuti Gatwa, I had a slim degree of hope. That is very much gone long ago. But we're getting a little bit better here with his comments, where he has to say, "I feel like anyone that has a problem with someone who's not a straight white man playing this character you're not really truly a fan of the show. This comes from someone who clearly doesn't understand what the role of the Doctor means, and I have very little doubt that he's watched virtually none of the show prior to his involvement in it, with perhaps the Jodie Whittaker era being the only thing that he really watched. So he has no stance of which to make to declare what makes a Doctor Who fan and what doesn't. It's not about a straight white man being the character for a lot of people. Of course, that is the role, that is what the character is. So if you have a problem with that, absolutely, that's fine. That's what the character is and what always has been and should be, in my opinion. But if you have any other problems with his casting, his performance, you're suddenly not a Doctor Who fan. He's becoming the arbiter of what it means to be a true fan. And that's something that Jodie Whittaker said in the past. That's stuff like what she said. And we mocked her for it, so I'm going to mock him for it. You can't arbitrate what it means to be a true Doctor Who fan with something as simple as, oh, you don't agree with my casting? You never liked the show. You never actually cared. You don't actually like Doctor Who. And it unfortunately still gets worse one more time here, where he has to say, any naysayers to his casting, don't watch, turn off the TV, go and touch grass, please, for God's sake. That's exactly what everyone's doing. You've seen the declining viewership, especially in the UK, over the last few years, and the American audience is virtually gone at this point. Maybe Disney Plus will have an influence on growing it up a little bit, but that's what people are doing. They're going away. Your viewership is such a dismal stance, even for the Christmas special, that it's only going to get worse, in my opinion. So people are following your advice and going to end in the cancellation of your show eventually. That's what's going to happen here. So yeah, people are following your advice. Your terms are acceptable. And touch grass. Yeah, these people have been touching grass. These people who don't like what's going on have a very firm grasp, at least more so than you do, about what reality is and what actual talent is, contradicting his previous statement about white mediocrity. So yeah, he's drawn the line in the sand. He said, if you don't like me, you're not a real fan. If you don't like me, don't watch. Well, people aren't going to watch, and this is going to end in disaster. But he believes that he is not going anywhere, that despite the declining viewership and him telling people, most of the fan base, to not watch, that he's still going to be around for a long time. He's not going anywhere soon. Yeah, that's going to be great. I fully expect that can last a very long time. His era at Doctor Who, fully expected to last a very, very long time. And of course, jokes aside, they are already filming the next season of his era. So of course, we're going to see him for several years now. But I do believe that the viewership is going to get so bad that they're going to have to make some major change. They're going to have to do something. And these comments aren't helping. They're just alienating the fan base, just like Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall did. They're using the same tactics. This isn't Russell T Davies anymore. I don't know what happened to him over the last few decades since he left the Doctor Who franchise the first time. I don't understand what happened fully, and I have no hope in it. I don't even know if I'm going to watch. At this point, I would say I'm not going to watch, or at least I'm not going to review the new season of Doctor Who coming with Ncuti Gatwa. But he might be here for a little while, but not for long, because his comments and the quality of the show are so abysmal that no one's going to watch, and it's going to have to get canceled. Now, briefly switching gears to Russell T Davies, he has some comments about the queerness of Doctor Who that I wanted to very briefly touch on. Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor will explore his queerness, says RTD. We're not delivering a neutered Doctor. That's not a type of word association that most people would have with a queer Doctor. And we already knew he was going to be exploring queerness. We saw that in just the 60th anniversary and especially in the Christmas special. This is nothing surprising to anyone who's been paying attention. But that shouldn't be the point of the show. How often has the Doctor explored sexuality at all? Rose Tyler would be the primary example of him doing so. Most of the rest of the time, he's not exploring it whatsoever, because that's not the point of the show. This isn't a romance. This isn't the type of universe where his love stories have anything to do with what's going on. This is further example that this isn't Doctor Who anymore. It's not what it's about. It doesn't matter if you thought he's supposed to be gay or not. It literally has no impact and shouldn't have any impact. And delivering a neutered Doctor, having a normal Doctor who isn't worried about sex and the story isn't about what his attractions to different people are, is neutered somehow. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, but there's some actual comments that I wanted to read here. Russell T Davies said, "You're talking about someone who does have a lightness and a joy about him that to me chimes with queer energy." And he suggested the previous incarnations of the Time Lord weren't exactly the straightest men. So, my God, those men were happy. They had joy. Of course they're gay. That doesn't make sense. No, the previous versions of the Doctor weren't gay just because they were happy. If all that it took to be queer is to be joyful, then I think the definition's entirely corrupted at this point because a lot of straight men are happy, and that makes them gay. This is a baffling quote, and just further exemplifies that he's lost all understanding of what the role of the Doctor is and what the franchise Doctor Who means. So yeah, he's going to be focusing on queerness, adding it into the show. We had no doubt about that whatsoever, but he had one final thing that I wanted to touch on here. He says here, "It's very hard for anyone to stop me doing these things. You'd have to be a pretty brave executive to say, 'Don't go there' to me." He has no intentions of listening to the studios who are telling him not to gay things up, queer things up. And of course, Disney's not going to tell him not to do anything. So I doubt there's any executives telling him to draw it back whatsoever. But he is not listening. He came to this franchise again to make it queer. He's making that very clear here, that that was the point. And that is all this upcoming show is going to be. Gayness who? Queer who? That's what we should call it from now on, is Queer Who. A sequel to Queer as Folk. That's what we have going on here. And there was one final piece of Russell T Davies news that I wanted to briefly mention here. He has this comment here about the controversial UK release scheduling for Series 1 is what it actually is Season 1, excuse me. It says even kids should stay up. So for those of you who don't know, Doctor Who is a British franchise. It always has been. It's been an integral part of their culture. That's why, as much as I love Doctor Who and I feel like I am a decent writer, I would never really want to take on the helm of Doctor Who because I'm not British, so I wouldn't understand a lot of what makes it what it is, at least from a cultural standpoint. I want people who are British, talented people who are British, to make the show. But with the move to Disney Plus and the Americanizing of it under the new RTD era, the show is getting released in primetime American slots and is being released at midnight in the UK, and that caused massive controversy. It's clear that this new show, being called Season, if nothing else, because that is an American version of individual seasons. In the UK, they use series instead of seasons. That this is for American audiences, and that is betraying the UK fan base that made it into what it is, that have carried this torch for 60 years. You're betraying your core fan base in the UK, if nothing else. And his response is, "Oh, just stay awake. Yeah, kids don't need to go to bed early. This is a kids show. We are making kids queer. That is the point of this show. Just make your kids stay up for their indoctrination." Why is anyone concerned about getting their kids up at midnight? This is just entirely tone deaf. And there have been rumors that he's not okay with these time slots releasing, but he could just stay silent if he doesn't want to go against what the studios have done, but he doesn't agree with it. Or he could have any other comment here that isn't attacking the fan base, the audience, the very small audience that he has left. It's just baffling to see Ncuti Gatwa and RTD so misunderstand the franchise and their customer base, their audience base. But that's what we've seen from the last few years of Doctor Who, and I fully expect that to be the future of Doctor Who for the foreseeable future, is that they don't understand what they're doing, and it'll only get worse from here. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.
Hey, yo, are you feeling what I'm doing up in here? Oh, I know you are. Do you miss all the good, compelling stories that we used to get back in Hollywood that they ain't putting down no more? I know you missing it. So check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern day mental illness issues, baby. Book 1, Down in Flames. Book 2, Apocalypse Then. These are currently on sale. What are you waiting for? Get your hands on them. And we got Book 3, Kill the Dark, is coming down the pipeline. Just wait for all the good stuff that's dropping. You ain't gonna be disappointed, fam.